And we're live.
Hi, friends. This is Kathleen from A Great Good Place for Books, and I have a really exciting event to introduce tonight. My very good friend, Joe Di Prisco, is going to be talking about his new book called The Good Family Fitzgerald. For those of you who don't know Joe, he has been really prominent in the Bay Area education world. He's written numerous books. He's written a lot of books about parenting teens and the teen crisis. And in the last few years, he's written a few memoirs. And then the last couple of years, he's written about a novel a year. And he talks about life in Brooklyn, New York with this one. And as Joe knows, I have an affinity to that myself. So why don't you join me in welcoming Joe Di Prisco to A Great Good Place for Books live video chat.
Kathleen, thank you very much. It's great. So I'm joined tonight, very happy to be joined by Ian Maloney, my friend from Brooklyn. There he is with his Nets hat on.
A nice Irish boy.
A nice Irish boy.
Got an Irish and
Caldwell,
Italian.
what are you going to do? We're having a convention here. And Ian is a professor of English at St. Francis College in Brooklyn. Wonderful Americanist, terrific writer, very involved in all kinds of initiatives in the metropolitan area. And somehow, and it led the St. Francis College Prize consideration year after year. And so I don't know how I got so lucky to become friends with him, but there it is. Thanks, Ian, for being here. I'm taking off now. You guys take it from here. I'm gone.
You're done? You're gonna let the two mix talk?
Anyway, so we got a little Irish here.
We do, yes.
We wish you
Cheers,
everybody.
Sláinte.
We got a little Middleton here. And this
Mike is Irish too, so you're outnumbered, Joe.
There you go. Yeah, of course, yeah. I'm outnumbered at home. My wife is a Fitzgerald. She's on. I hope she's on, Paddy. There you are. Anyway, so there we are.
Well, it's great to be here. Feels like we've been talking literature forever, and I'm just really excited to be able to talk The Good Family Fitzgerald with you. It's a novel of so many different depths, and so I just wanted to talk. I know, like, this is a book that you published several books in between this one, and when you started this book. What happened between that process? I know at one point you told me it was around 8 years that you kind of percolating this novel. What was it that you kept coming back to it? Like, what was about the story that you kept coming back to?
I can answer that, and I'll probably be completely misrepresenting what happened, but I have an answer. So I couldn't shake this book. I started writing it. I let it go. I published Pope of Brooklyn, I came back to it. I published Sibella and Sibella, I came back to it. Published a book of poems. And it just kept coming back to me. It's 145,000 words, which is not a short novel. And I think we cut 40,000 words before we went to print. And if my publisher's online, those are the best cut words ever. We'll come back to those words sometime. Anyway, so for me, I wanted to, there was a family saga, and I realize this is going to sound silly, but I've been writing about the family for so long, and it wasn't conscious. I've had a lot of resistance to the family reality, but the characters got to me, and there's what I began to become entranced by was the myth of these dysfunctional families. We have all the patriarchies converging in this novel: the mob, the church, the family, and what happens in the course of this novel, I think it's fair to say that the female characters drive the narrative, even while the patriarchs are trying like hell to keep control of the situation. So but it's such a great question, and if I understood that, I guess I couldn't explain it, why I came back to it.
Yeah, because when we first started talking about it, you mentioned this fact that this is a book, that was kind of eating away at you, and you were kind of toying with the structure of it a little bit and kind of altering it around. And there were a lot of things that you held on to that people suggested that maybe were another book entirely. But it is an epic story. And it's interesting you mentioned the female characters because, for me, Francesca and Ruth are kind of like without giving away too much, just the real heart of the book. So much of the drama of this family kind of centers around their relationships, and then kind of how they interact with the men of the family is particularly important.
Well, and there was so much stuff that happened in the course, as with every family. I think that it's almost impossible to capture all the realities of any family. But when I think about just the stuff that happens in this book, people die, people get very sick, people get hurt, mobsters throw their weight around, the church throws its weight around, love affairs happen, sex consumes people. There's a bookstore that opens, Kathleen. Somebody opens a bookstore in the course of this. A dog becomes a hero.
They've got to open a bookstore.
The Irish Americans are running amok. The teenagers are running amok. The priests are running amok. Somebody might become a saint before this is over. A selfie goes crazy, makes a tremendous impact, and people grow old. And then Middleton is everywhere. I should get product placement credit somewhere because Middleton is there's the drink of choice throughout the entire narrative. And then there's a writer born into this family. Because as I think I might have mentioned, it's an Irish American family. A writer gets born into it.
As they usually do.
Yeah. It's in the blood. What can you say? It's well, I wanted to kind of dig in a little bit to there's you put me onto this idea about the book about the way that you structured it. You mentioned Donovan, right? And Donovan is a character that comes in later without giving on too much. But how did you kind of, in a way, realize that you were going to kind of, with part 3, add on this kind of different form? I mean, because there is an experimentation occasionally in form. I mean, the book starts off, it seems to be a kind of chapter development between how two characters interact and expand to others. But then there's a major section where a younger character comes in and really kind of summarizes a lot of what's happening and puts it in a different direction.
Well, as you know, every chapter is named after a character.
Yeah.
So it's a character. So the character is fate, character is plot. There's nothing without character. Going a little bit off to the side here. I mean, several of my novels are what's sometimes called high concept. I don't know what that means, actually. I don't even know what historical novel means anymore. I mean, I know, as you know, the first lines of this novel are, all happy families are the same. And no, that's Tolstoy, it's not me. But so I think what I found in the course of this novel was that there's a myth. Okay, there are 5 principal characters in the family, but maybe there's 6 or 7, and maybe there's 8, and maybe there's 9. Anyway, the stories begin to multiply. And for a family of 8 people, there are 64 myths. And I wanted to be true to that. And there's a never-endingness to the family story that goes on beyond death. People, in some important way, never go away, even when they're gone. And before they're born, they have an impact on the family. So in a roundabout way, I think I'm answering your question. I hope I'm answering your question. Yeah. I
mean, you've mentioned this before, but the mob and the Catholic Church are crucial to your work. And I mean, the story, obviously, if anyone has read Subway to California, I mean, the stories are incredible. Can you tell us a little bit about, your family story, your family background, a little bit about, how you wound up became, I affectionately have heard you referred to as you're the black sheep of the family, right? How did that happen?
I'm the black sheep of the family because I graduated from high school, which was a very dangerous move to make. And really, seriously, it was a separator, a social separator. And my father was a small-time con man, a bookmaker, a gifted liar, just like my mother, tremendously gifted liars. They were very handsome, gorgeous people. There were 2 set volumes in my house on Humboldt Street in Greenpoint. Very different now these days, Greenpoint, from when I grew up there.
Yeah.
Back in the turn of the century. But there, it was always shouting or silence, and nobody answered. So I would ask my father a question, and I would always get the answer, you know, because I'm one of the pain in the ass kids who needs to know everything. What are you writing, a book? And actually, that's a good imitation of my old man. That's actually pretty good. If anybody remembers that.
Yeah,
I know some people on the. I know some people are here who knew my dad, so he was a character. Anyway, we're in California because he was on the run from the FBI and the NYPD. How he got there, it's a long story. Subway to California is where I tell it, and I still didn't know everything when I wrote the Subway to California. It's only after I published it I found all these transcripts of trials, New York State Supreme Court trials where my father is the star witness in these dirty cops trials. They were fascinating exchanges, and he was just like himself. He could never answer a straight question. He drove the attorneys nuts. He couldn't answer a straight question. He couldn't tell the truth. I don't know how he got out of it, how he wiggled out of everything, but he finally sort of straightened out, although I did get all his FOIA records, Freedom of Information Act stuff. And there was a lot of, the FBI was interested in him over the years, more than once, as they were in me. That's another story. When I was a subject to a federal investigation, which is, Ian, something you don't want to have. You don't want that to happen.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. When they said, well, you're the prime suspect in a racketeering investigation, I said, I do have a lot of vowels in my name, true, but can't you think of somebody else? Anyway, I don't know if I answered your questions. Oh, for me, I know what I was going to say. I think, interestingly, this novel is the least autobiographical of my novels. I could trace in different fictions I've written my life, you know, my card playing life, or my restaurant running life, or my life in an novitiate when I was Brother Joseph. I can see those stories going on. Not here. I don't. I have stuff to say about the Irish Americans and the Italian Americans, and some of my best friends are Irish Americans, but I don't think I've ever. I think this is the stuff I made up here, or I found these stories that compelled me. I don't know if they're autobiographical, except to say that the narrator, the third-person narrator, has the same damn fixations and preoccupations and motifs that I do all day long.
That's one of the beauties of being, novel writing in general. You get to lead all these multiple lives and go down these various paths that, you may be curious about, but perhaps there's only one life to live. So, but, it's one of the joys of writing. You get to explore all these various lives and how they interact and how they complicate things. And it's one of the beauties of the book.
Well, and I like that. That was nicely put, because I do think that's one of the transcendent joys of being a fiction writer is, what are the cliches about writing? They're all true and they're all false. Write what you know, write what you don't know. Okay, they're both true. I found it, I led multiple lives because I had my own issues that I couldn't pick the side of the street I wanted to walk on, so I tried to walk on both sides. I was enamored of the romantic side of the criminal life. My brother, two of my brothers actually, were pretty involved in that. But the church always got me. But I sort of managed both over the years until I don't know. I don't know if I ever settled down. I don't know if I ever found a place. Maybe that's why I write. I don't know, to find a place, find a temporary home.
Yeah, keep reinventing. I'm curious with a book like this. When your process, are you a plotter? Do you sit down and you outline and kind of figure out, or are you more like, was the doctor cliche of like said something like, you know, I get up and it's like driving a car in the fog, you know, I can only see as far as the headlights, you know, that's all I need to know, you know.
I love that.
What's the way? Yeah, it's an interesting quote. It's pretty good. Which kind of path do you find yourself usually taking when you sit down to write a book?
You know, it's funny. I never could outline, even in high school when they wanted you to outline a paper. I never could do it. I couldn't. I don't think so. I don't think linearly. I just don't. Yeah. I'm sure this drives friends of mine crazy that I do that, but I can't think linearly. So I want to get to. I want to be open to the stories the characters are telling me. That sounds very pretentious, and I apologize, but it's kind of true. They're going to take me where they're going to take me because their characters have to be interesting enough to me. If they're interesting enough to me, and they're full of surprises, then there's a hope that maybe a reader will find them surprising and interesting. So I work every day on one thing or another, and I'm pretty OCD, pretty obsessive compulsive.
Do you stick with one project at a time, or do you bounce around to what the day is kind of leading you to?
Well, this novel is a perfect case in point where I'll move around. I have several. I mean, there are lots of failed novels on my computer, and stories and poems. I wanna say that I keep trying to find a justification for my life with the next book, because I'm a good Catholic boy. I want to do that. So I want to be open to the surprises and open to the pain, the suffering that these characters. I mean, because you gotta lay it all out. You gotta. The important thing I tried to get across to my students, creative writing students, is leave it all in the field. Don't hold anything back. Just give it. There's no holding back. And I like to think that one day I'll get good enough to do that all day long. But for me, I'm a slow writer. When I was teaching, I'd get up you're doing this now with sweet baby James getting up 5 in the morning. Yeah. And getting up 5 in the morning, and I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. I need time. And fortunately, I kind of can do that right now.
Yeah. Yes. So, so you basically you get up, you're writing. How many hours are you putting in a day? Would you say?
Well, I've always got it going all day long. I've always got the book, the book I'm working on right now. It's open all day long, and I dip in and out. Because I'm involved in this nonprofit, I get 500 emails, 100 emails a day that I have to deal with, and they're all good. They're all important to do. So I'm entertained by the real world. I'd like to be a tourist in the real world, and maybe this goes to what's going on. You're not talked about this. What's going on with this pandemic? Well, first of all, there are multiple pandemics going on. There's viral, social, political, and people are cracking up. I'm seeing it. People are cracking. Sometimes I'm one of them. I mean, I feel. The writer's natural set point is isolation.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it benefits us to a certain degree because we're used to being inside of each other's, our own minds for such long periods of time. Sometimes too long.
Well, but it's good. So that's. But I think so. This heightens our attention to the world, to the natural world. I mean, this is going to sound very zen-y of me because I'm the least zen person I know. But I can see a flower looks different. I don't know why. The clouds look different. The dogs look different. The water looks different. And I think it's because our attention is so demanded in this isolation. Our attention is so demanded. We can't socialize in the world, and there's an upside to that for me. That wears me out socially. No offense to my friends online. I love you guys. Always want to be with you. But for me, it's always attention. So it's a matter of attention. And then the interesting thing is this leads to a different intention. And so what are we intending to do with this life and this world? And there are political challenges and social challenges like never before, and medical challenges.
Yeah.
And artistic challenges. Here we are talking about a book. Why is that important? Well, I'm the last person in the world to say reading a book is important, but I do know this: storytelling is crucial, and we need that. Because if we don't have that, then all we have is all the bad news in the world. I mean, there's that great thing, and I've talked about this to Cameron, Giovanni Boccaccio, who wrote this wonderful book in the 14th century in Florence, outside Florence. The plague is going on, bodies are in the streets, people are terrified of their family.
So timely now, right?
Yeah, and so they go out in the story, they go out to the countryside, these 10 millennials, and they tell each other stories for 10 days about love and lust and play and tragedy. It's a great book. The first line of the Decameron it's so amazing. It says, the human thing is to have care, to have compassion for those who are afflicted. Human thing is to have compassion for those afflicted. And how does he express that compassion? By telling stories.
Yeah.
We need stories. And I think we need stories in mysterious ways. And this actually, heads back to our initial conversation about family. Families are crazy institutions. We can't live with them, can't live without them. The church, the mob. I mean, two dysfunctional families.
Yeah.
Maybe all families are dysfunctional.
And they're all kind of families.
Not yours.
Yeah. It's funny. My sister teaches in Florence every year, and I'm sure that's bringing her back to that beautiful city. That little reference to the Decameron. I mean, it's just such a timely book. I mean, and it says these similar things that this is what sometimes we need. We need to be able to withdraw in order to kind of figure out the direction, figure out where to go, and be able to tell stories in various ways. To tell them, your book begins, without giving any spoilers, with a tragedy. You're kind of hit, taken aback. And then there are moments of levity. There are characters. You need to have all of these things in terms of being able to kind of center yourself in this crazy world, pandemic world that we're currently facing. Which, to be perfectly honest, there is much more truth to kind of retreating into fiction than what you're seeing being peddled there as
on
reality.
On TV every night. Yeah. And so I don't know about you, but I can only take so much TV.
Yeah, I can't.
I mean, it's just a flood.
Yeah. I'll start punching walls or something like that. It's not a pretty picture.
At the same time, I don't know where everybody's politics are on out here in our audience, but I know what I think. I know we need to do something. I know action is crucial. I know that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, that's enough. Hey, you want me to read something?
I would love for you to read something.
Okay, I find this kind of a little hard. This is one of these books of mine that pretty hard to pick a passage that doesn't give away too much right away. So but this kind of does and doesn't. So this is in the first chapter. As Ian said a second ago, something bad is going to happen. And every sharp reader sees it from the first line. You can see it. But so Francesca marries Anthony Fitzgerald. He's the prince of the family, Francesca Scalino. They fall in love. They're married. But there's this Irish-Italian kind of thing. A lot of it's around this car. The car, by the way, the Maserati, is kind of a character in this novel. This 1957 Maserati, which kind of passes through the chapters. It's a beautiful car, by the way. Anyway, so this is what the narrator has to say, and there's a transition here to Francesca talking about the married life that they have. So Kathleen, I'm going to read for the next 40 or 50 minutes. Okay. It's actually 3 minutes, Kathleen. Okay. Irish and the Italians. The Irish may have invented talking, but the Italians invented never shutting up. The Italians may have originated fashion and style and design, The French may take a number. While the Irish originated not giving a knee wobbler what anybody thought about how they looked. They were both cops and mobsters, sometimes simultaneously. They were equally connoisseurs of contemptuousness. Italians looked down upon somebody not born in their hometown, and the Irish, anybody who wasn't born Irish, and as far as the Fitzgeralds were concerned, sipped anything other than Jameson. And yet they both fancied themselves experts in matters of the heart too. Natural-born poets and artists and die-hard loyalists to the bitter end when it came to their friends. Most were what you might call Catholic, but Catholics couldn't confidently articulate what Catholic meant anymore. All their emotions were operatic in scale, and their glasses were not empty indefinitely. They deplored their countries, but with patriotic conviction. They were generous with their money, and even more generous with yours. They trusted you around their spouses and with other precious possessions, but kept a close watch, because all men are dogs and you never know. They were both dedicated to the idea of the family, for which they would die if they didn't demolish it first. They both served up tragedy all day long, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and comedy for dessert. But speaking of cuisine, that's when equivalence evaporates, as only the Italians can be said to have one. And they both lived and died for and with soccer, which they called football or calcio, and wholeheartedly believed in the vagaries of luck, as when the two converged in the latest penalty kick of misfortune. Stereotypes like these may come in handy, insofar as each contains a germ of truth. Thus only a fool subscribes, Italians and the Irish. They were exactly the same, only completely different. Francesca recognized that some married couples maintained they benefited from learning how to fight fair, because to their way of thinking, clashing was inevitable once the honeymoon glow dimmed. If you believed the rom-com movies and the TV shows, fighting amounted to an aggressive, ritualized form of foreplay or anthropological display. Ultimately, married people fought not so much to defend themselves or to draw blood, that is, but in order to be intimate. That could make a kind of sense, she supposed, though that made it sound tactical. And the notion of erotic strategizing, a frat boy's wet dream, depressed her. She'd concede this much. Post-battle sex could sweep the decks clear, exchanging one sort of emotional intensity for a more satisfying kind. At least when each member of the couple suspends self-interest and stops to care for the other more than achieving the goal of scoring points. Then interests overlap as bodies and souls merge in mutual consent. Arguments melt into meaninglessness in the heat of passion. But sex was not the result and not the byproduct of a negotiation. At least not the kind of sex anybody really craved. It was more like reciprocal submission, which sounded both logically impossible and absolutely real. As a rule, as far as she was concerned, being a devotee of marital combat meant not being good at being married. On the street, in the boardroom, in the financial markets, in court, every fight must have a winner, and therefore must have a loser. But for her in a marriage, fighting risks leaving two losers on the sweaty mat, or at least two unwinners. Of course, she was guessing, a rank amateur. When it comes to intimacy and marriage, everybody was an amateur, hazarding wild hunches. All her friends, this was a stat drawn from an idiosyncratic small sampling, while many of her female friends had maneuvered their mates into going on a couples counseling peacekeeping mission, a type of mediation. In practice, somebody was often wishing to commission a psychic makeover on her partner, or somebody was lodging a kind of criminal complaint, in which case couples counseling functioned as a branch of law enforcement. Couples counseling never crossed Anthony and Francesca's minds, not once. They knew they knew they were lucky, but they didn't know how lucky, until one day they were not.
It's really beautiful. I mean, those last two lines, you know, to end that last paragraph, they were exactly the same, only completely different. I mean, it just, it hits the nail right on the head for this novel. And then that last, the last sentence that you read, they knew they were lucky, but they didn't know how lucky until one day they were not. I mean, it's just, they're two really perfect paragraphs to kind of get at what this book is aiming at, I think. I mean, it's a really great place to read because it kind of gives you the tensions in two paragraphs, what you're going to get, see played out. The family dramas, the family tensions, the maneuvers and manipulations that people have with one another over the church and money and family drama and politics and business. And yet, in a certain way, it's about a family often recovering from the realities of life, the tragedies that are going to come. The things that people going, the mother, kind of going into, starting to lose, memory and starting to lose, faculties, and just, it's a really solid place to give you the flavor of what the drama of this book.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it really does. It captures the tensions that you're going to see swirling out in various ways as you make your way through it.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, so this is my day job. My pro bono, my Joe Bono job, of course, is being involved in the Simpson Project, which you know about.
I do.
Simpson Literary Project, which I'm very proud of, and we've had. I don't know if everybody in the audience knows about this, but we lead writing workshops around the Bay Area. Well, first of all, this last year has been a disaster. Everything got lost, but most of it got lost. But we lead writing workshops for free for teenage writers at places like Juvie and Girls Inc. and Comprehensive High School on Walnut Creek, Northgate. Joyce Carol Oates is on our board. She is the eponymous award person. The Joyce Carol Oates Prize goes out every year to a mid-career fiction writer. And it's been T. Geronimo Johnson, Anthony Mara, Layla Lalami, and then this year Daniel Mason. And that we give them $50,000. We've had lots of events. Kathleen's been some of these events. And we publish Simpsonistas every year. We're coming up onto Simpsonistas 3, which I'm working on right now. And this includes writings from everybody, people associated with the project, from the board to the kids to Joyce. And I remember we had this event at the Lafayette Library, and these workshops are taught by graduate students from Cal, who are great teachers and creative writers. And one of our Simpson fellows just won the Yale Younger Poets Prize, big deal, and a great teacher, great poet. And we did one of these events last October. We had the kids from Girls Inc. read, and I remember afterwards, a huge event, somebody comes up, one of the mothers comes up and says, my girl will never be the same. Her life has changed forever, which is what you want. I mean, this is what the project does. Storytelling is the foundation of a literate democratic society. It's the beginning of everything. So we're very proud of the project. We have lots of stuff in the works, and we're here for the long haul. We'll be getting the search now for the 5th prize winner, for the 2021 prize winner. So in the meantime, I know Ian, you'll be working on the therapeutics, and Kathleen will be working on the vaccine, and then we'll be able to get back in business somehow.
Yeah. Well, someday we'll actually be in a room together talking literature again. That's.
Well, I was coming to New York in March. I was going to come to the college. I had events planned in New York. I was going to see you, and if I got on that plane, I'd have been quarantined for 14 days.
Well, we just have to keep Brooklyn alive, East Coast, West Coast. That's just how it goes.
No sleep till Brooklyn, right?
Right. That's how it goes.
All right. Anyway, thanks, Ian, for all your questions.
It's my, anytime you want to chat books, and particularly chat The Good Family Fitzgerald. I love this book, Rare Bird Books. I recommend it to all my friends, everyone out there. It's quite a ride, and it'll keep you guessing and keep you going. So I tell you to go out and read it.
Thanks.
Hey, Joe, what are you working on now?
The biography of Kathleen Caldwell. That's my.
Sounds frightening.
No, I've got a book of short stories I'm working on. So, but that's my.
This must have been, going back to the publication of this book, this must have been such an odd time to be publishing a book, because so many of us, our hands were tied throughout the very beginning of when the book landed. I mean, I know that we were online only, which was like, we did it, but it wasn't always a lot of fun. But, you know, between me and Mike and Sam and Sarah, we really made it happen. And
well, I'm proud of you, Kathleen, that you made a go of this. That was a scary moment there for everybody, and there are a lot of financial and economic losses across the board, and we need to support independent bookstores. Everybody should support independent bookstores like Kathleen's. Do that right now. Yeah, so you're asking a question, what it's like to release a book in this environment. Well, yeah, the reviews are like molasses. Everything is low. There's, yeah, the book is getting a good response. I don't know if Tyson's on this on the program here, but he's happy with the interest in the book. He's my publisher, Tyson Cornell, my great publisher. You know, so I don't know. It's always a little crazy to publish a book anywhere, anytime, right? It's just.
Well, I mean, I think that this was. I mean, I know that we've worked with a few people who had their debut novels come out during this time.
Yeah.
And I know that they've been like having to recreate what we normally do for books. You know, I mean that's one thing. And I need to say, I'll do a shout out to Mike Kelleher. We would not be doing any of this without him. He is a master, and I am very lucky to have him on my side. Just as I am you, Joe. You know, I'm a fan.
Back at you, baby. So we're, yeah, I mean, bookstores are catching up to the technology. This is the way we're going to be working for the next, who knows, 6 months, 9 months, a year, whatever. And I'm proud of what you've been doing here. This is a great thing, making this virtual experience possible.
Well, we have a really great team here at GGP. I feel like I'm very blessed, and we have a great community of readers, and our community. What I learned from being online is our community really stretches across the country. We were getting orders from all over the place, but I do feel that it takes a village, and I feel like I'm very blessed to be a part of a really amazing, you know, Bay Area bookselling village. We are so blessed to be where we are.
Well, and I've always felt the support. You guys have always promoted my books, and I appreciate that very much.
Well, I mean, you know, Joe, I always call you my Italian uncle. You know, I mean, we joke that I'm Italian by proxy because my Irish uncles both married New York Italian women. So I do have some experience with both sides of the culture.
There you go. There you go.
And you do know I am the granddaughter of a New York Irish cop. So, I mean, it's, you know. And storytelling.
I knew that's why you had the handcuffs behind the register. I knew that.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody should have a set of handcuffs behind the register.
Oh, now it's that kind of program? Wait a second. None of that.
No, I mean, I just think that I am so proud of our entire community, the way we've all risen to the occasion, and we're still out there promoting our writers, and we're promoting our customers, and we're promoting each other, which is what we need to do during this time.
Well, here, Kathleen, I mean, we have people on this call tonight from London, from Pennsylvania, from Maine, from LA, from Texas, from Chicago. I mean, this is a.
And just remember, you can all buy the book at www.ggpbooks.com.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Because Joe will, even if I harass him enough, I bet he'd come and sign them.
I'd do it. I'd do it. I got a mask. I got a hazmat suit. I'm coming.
Ian, do you have any questions for Joe?
I see some chat here.
Oh, let's check. Let's see what the chat says.
I can't open it. Can somebody open it?
Oh, here's one. So as a storyteller, do you bring these standalone stories into another single work, or are your single works a steady flow that doesn't incorporate these fragments? That's from an anonymous attendee.
Yeah, I wish I could get one more sentence to understand what that question means. What do you think it means? I think it's an important question, but I don't get it yet.
They
So
want to
in other
know
words,
if
you take the fragments that you have and try to kind of put them together into a whole?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
Like
Yeah,
if
the
you have
whole
things
is-
that,
Yeah, the whole doesn't happen. The wholeness doesn't begin to occur till the 25th draft. I mean, everything is fragmented along the way. And I think writers, well, I'll speak for myself. I mean, oftentimes I would make a mistake of trying to force connections, logical or whatever. And that's always, you need to write what you can. You write what's occurring to you. So so maybe if I get the questions right, then yeah, I don't force it in the drafting. I let it happen. But when it's the redrafting, and which every book is rewritten, well, mine rewritten 20 plus times. I mean, and that's always. I mean, it's a hard. I mean, one thing about writing a book is publishing is different from publishing a book, and then it becomes a team effort. I've been lucky with the editors I've had, publishers I've had, people working with people. It's a great thing. People help you, and I can always tell. You know, with the Simpson Literary Prize, the Joyce Carol Oates Prize, I read a lot of fiction, a lot of very good fiction. I can actually tell who had a good editor. It's pretty clear.
who's some of the people that like you return to right now? Like who's like, you know, I mean, during a pandemic, we're all kind of going back to the bookshelf. Who are some of those people that you kind of find yourself gravitating back to?
Well, it's a fascinating question. I lost a lot of time this period. I got sick for 5 weeks, probably with it. And I couldn't concentrate for a long time. But I've been reading short fiction lately with Gradit, Chekhov, and I love these two books. I mean, Leonard Michaels, fantastic short story writer. Always go back to O'Connor. Frank O'Connor, either O'Connor. Anybody named O'Connor who writes short stories, fine by me. J.F. Powers.
Yeah, good stuff.
You
took classes with Michaels, right? You knew Michaels. Right?
He was on my orals committee at Cal. He's a brilliant guy. It's a great essayist, very moving writer, great writer. Lost him too soon.
Yeah. So I mean, you said you're working on it. This is your first short story collection, right?
Yeah.
How is it going? Is they, you know, is there an angle, or is there something that kind of unifies them, or are they?
No, not yet, but I think there might be.
Yeah.
As soon as I get it, I'll know the book. I think the book is on its way. There's probably a novella in there. Yeah, I've not published many short stories. I just found myself attracted to it all of a sudden. I published memoir and poetry and nonfiction and novels, and I don't know. I wanted to publish some essays. I wanted to do something different. It's a challenge. Keep it fresh, right?
That's the way to be.
So is there another question down here? I can't open this if somebody can.
I got it. It was just a follow-up. That question just said, in reference to when he said he has plenty of unfinished works, poems, and stories on the computer.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I know very few writers who don't have abandoned novels in their computer, in their desk drawer. I mean, you don't. Sometimes things don't work. This is one. I was talking to Peter Warner, great short story writer, and Daniel Mason said the same thing. Another good short story writer.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about writing a short story is, well, you can invest a week in it and you lose it. Okay, it didn't happen. You start a novel's like opening up a business. Like everything's got to, so sometimes it just doesn't work. And so it takes a lot of courage to, or weakness to say, I guess that didn't happen. I guess I'll try another day, live to fight another day.
Yeah.
But yeah. I never throw anything away, as my wife will say. If you can see my desk, I mean, if you can see my office here, everything's here.
Everything's in a drawer somewhere.
Yeah. Anything else, Kathleen?
I got another question. Hold on 1 second. I'll read this to you. I love to write, but my writing is personal and in a journal. People have told me that I have a book in me, but I don't see it. I look at a book and say, I don't know enough words. So tell me, where do all the words come from?
It's a good question. They come from reading a lot. They come from talking to people who write books. They come from classes. I mean, I'm not sure where this nice person is from, but I bet there are workshops available tomorrow to go to. And I would say, for you, it might be a little risky. It's always, okay, back up. It's a risky thing to publish anything. You're out there. People say stuff. I'm not going to quote people. People have to, people say mean things. Okay, fine. Who cares? The heck with them. They can't take a joke. What's great about, and if you aspire to be a writer, I mean, I get these questions because I think they're so profound. I want you to trust yourself and go for it.
Yeah.
Just go for it.
And it's figuring out that line where you figure out what you're comfortable with putting out in the world and what you're not. And that's from when you're, I think, grammar school student, a high school student, college student. And a lot of it comes down to, just what you said. This is going to be a public activity and people are going to take a look at it. How much of this story do you have control of too? I mean, how much of that is especially if you're writing memoir, where you are kind of saying, hey, this happened. This is the way it was. You have to be prepared whether you're comfortable with putting that out there.
And you're a professor of creative writing. You deal with this all the time with undergraduates and graduate students in the MFA program at St. Francis. But Russell Baker said, since the questioner is about memoir, Russell Baker said, great memoirist, said, nobody's life makes any sense. Just tell a story. And so you need to listen to stories, learn how to tell stories. And there is an art. I mean, not every storytelling is an art. There is a craft to it. But next to having a voice, a natural voice, that's the second most valuable asset for an aspiring writer, I think. The first most valuable asset is fearlessness. Go for it. What do you got to lose?
You've got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
There you
go. So we have another question. Joe, are any of your fictional characters a little too similar to real people you know? Do you ever have to go back and alter characters so as to not piss people off that you know?
Well, great question. And I'll have to consult with my attorney before
that one comes from the family Maloney, by the way, just to...
So yeah, I've lost the love and affection of members of my family after Subway to California. And I don't know what I can do about that. I just told the truth. In my cynical moods, I say, well, write your own book. If I didn't get it right, you do it. I think a common thing with a young writer is, like with the first novel, is, well, I'm going to get even with my ex or something. So I'm going to, clean the decks here. I'm going to get her. Yeah, I was tempted by that. Sure, why not? It's a failed occupation. It's a stupid thing to do. So you let go of it. The more fascinating thing to me about this is, and this happened in my novels, yeah, there are some characters who, well, they're me sometimes. There are some autobiographical elements in The Owl's Hammer and in Sun City, which is about a blackjack team in South Africa and Las Vegas. And I did that, so I kind of did that. But when you're writing a memoir, I could think of this one person who was somebody I really despised and had a great impact on my life, harm to my life. And as I wrote about this SOB, I found myself, to my horror, being more sympathetic to him. I think this is the craziest thing. I'm not, if there is a God, I'm going to make sure I ask that question. How the hell did you figure that out, that I can be sympathetic to somebody who's just a rotten human being? And it's a great exercise. And it's about being, okay, so I began to see, well, I guess I can see why he thought that about me. So, yeah, and this leads to a larger question. Is there a moral dimension to being a writer? What's our responsibility? Is there a political dimension? I think if you're writing a political novel, you're making, that's one kind of, I don't write that. But I do think every book worth reading has a political point. And there's a moral dimension, and that is to be fair to your characters, to be truthful, and to tell the truth. And that's just not only in memoirs. I mean, there's a simpler way to talk. A memoir has to be fact, has to be true. You can't make up stuff. But in fiction, you tell the truth by lying. And there's a moral dimension to that. I mean, the easy thing that people talk about, not that it's trivial or untrue, is that reading fiction, reading stories increases your empathy for others. I think that's true. When I was talking to Daniel Mason, who's a psychiatrist, and I asked him, well, we had an interview, and I said, so is reading therapeutic? He said, it depends. I thought that was a great answer. Yeah, it depends, Is the Marquis de Sade therapeutic? I don't know about that. Anyway, so I think there's a moral dimension. That's not being moralistic. I mean, John Gardner makes this great point the great John Gardner makes the point that a writer may be a terrible human being. And I can think of great writers who are terrible human beings. But maybe when they're writing, they're their best selves. And so you aspire to that. You aspire to that.
I think that's the perfect ending point. Joe, thank you so much. And Ian, it is such a pleasure to get to know you, and I can't wait for your book to come out.
Thank you.
Hopefully we can all do this in person next year. That would be fun.
That would be great.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And Joe's book is available at GGP. And we have plenty in stock. And we also have, we can ship them out to you. We can do whatever you want. And Joe, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathleen, very much. You're always wonderful. Ian, thank you so much.
Ian, thank you.
Really enjoyed it.
Thanks a lot for everything.
You're welcome.
Let's do this again tomorrow night, shall we?
No, free.
All right. Take care.
See you guys.
Thanks, you guys.
Take care.
Thank you, everybody.